Death stalks this city. Over 200 women have been killed in the past few years. Their bodies turn up regularly on wasteland outside of town. This nightmare has transformed what was supposed to be a city of dreams.
Súbeme las manos allá, súbeme las manos ahí, compa.
The body of yet another teenage girl has just been found on the outskirts of Juarez. The pressure is mounting on the police to produce results. The police have invited a number of foreign experts to come and help. Among them, Canadian criminologist Dr. Candy Scrapek. Dr. Scrapek, who's worked with the FBI, teaches criminology at university in California. She's an expert on serial killers.
I essentially had 3 strikes against me upon my arrival in Juarez. One being female, being perceived as a shrink. Indeed, I am a psychologist, and that generally doesn't go in one's favor in a law enforcement environment. Also being perceived as an Americano, even though indeed I am Canadian. How long have you had this program? ¿Cuántos meses?
Dr. Scrapek has been assisting with police procedures.
You can see the brownish,
Yes.
kind of like, for a teenager, kind of.
Yes.
Como ves estas líneas, o sea, marcamos las variables, o sea, tanto horizontales como verticales, para poder en un momento dado en la superposición.
A new computer program is speeding up the process of identification.
Línea media.
The badly decomposed body is soon identified as that of Elena Chavez Caldera, a 15-year-old factory worker who'd been missing for 3 months. Another name on the growing list.
I estimate that since 1993, there probably have been 4 different individuals working alone, killing at least 3 people over a period of time.
Juarez is the murder capital of the Americas. It sits on Mexico's border with the US, just across the Rio Grande from the Texas town of El Paso. Its border position has brought money in the form of 400 mostly American-owned factories, locally known as maquiladoras. They've drawn workers from all over Mexico. Since the 1960s, the population of Juarez has trebled to over 1.5 million. It's the fastest-growing city in the Americas. The women's killings take place in a city that's already racked by warring drug gangs. Juarez is the center of Mexico's multi-billion-dollar narcotics trade. For the Juarez police, getting to grips with the violence is an uphill task.
Tras esta ciudad de los sueños de lograr un trabajo en la zona maquiladora, no alcanza el sueño deseado, ¿verdad? Y se deja la maquiladora o en algunos casos no tienen la preparación suficiente para calificar dentro de la maquiladora y viene a desembocar en delitos patrimoniales.
Every so often, the police mount coordinated raids on the city's red light district. In tonight's action, 200 heavily armed officers will search 25 nightclubs and several hundred people for drugs and weapons.
Tenemos alrededor de 545 funcionarios. Tenemos en este año desde 173 víctimas. Estamos con armamento suficiente, con balas. 2 helicópteros y una avioneta.
Tonight's operation yields a tiny trace of cocaine and an underage drinker. Critics say these operations are just for show, and that the real centres of crime are never directly challenged. Although far higher numbers of men are killed in the drugs wars, it's the unsolved murders of women that have really put the city on edge. It all started in 1993, when locals first stumbled upon the bodies lying in the wasteland surrounding the city. Many had been raped, their bodies mutilated. Since then, the death toll has reached well over 200.
Sigan disfrutando de la programación excelente de Radio Cañón 800 AM. Les mandamos un cañonazo.
A spate of radio chat shows regularly discuss who the women's killers might be.
Radio Cañón.
Se encuentra la osamenta.
La osamenta.
Y en algunos casos.
Y en algunos casos se encuentra la osamenta y se acerca y dice, oye, por ahí hay un caso de satanismo. Jóvenes, morenas, entre los 15 y los 18 años, están perfectas para quitarle sus ojos, sus riñones, su hígado, su corazón, su médula. ¿Cuánto cuesta un cuerpo humano puesto en un hospital? No podemos descartar ninguna posibilidad.
En un principio, ¿por qué no recordar? Nuestras autoridades se lavaban las manos diciendo que se metían en lugares no gratos, o que se mantenían en bailes, o que se vestían en forma provocativa. El colmo de los colmos, ¿verdad? Es decir, asesinaron a una joven porque trae una minifalda, pero últimamente pues hemos visto que los asesinos no se puede dudar de la reputación de las jóvenes desaparecidas. No es por ahí la cosa.
The latest to go missing is an 18-year-old college student, Lupita. She left home one afternoon to visit a school friend. She never arrived.
Yo era estricto con ellas, yo las tenía.
I was strict with her, like fathers are, but not too strict. I just wanted her to have fun, but I also warned her of the dangers. I don't know why this has happened to us.
Aún así me pasó, no entiendo yo por qué.
O sea, no.
My daughter was like a child. She was still not grown up. She enjoyed the simplest things.
Disfrutaba de las cosas más sencillas.
Lupita's college friends now live in fear.
¿Por qué está pasando?
We're a frontier town. People come here from all over.
Estamos en frontera. Ciudad Juárez es una ciudad.
Criminals from the US or from the south of Mexico come to commit crimes in Juárez.
En Estados Unidos viene aquí a Ciudad Juárez a seguirlos cometiendo. Gente que viene.
It will carry on so long as the authorities do nothing.
Existiendo si las autoridades no se ponen las pilas.
Lupita's disappearance has caused an outrage in Juárez because she was a local girl, not a migrant worker. This is the biggest demonstration seen in Juárez for years. The marchers focus their anger on one woman, Suli Ponce. She's head of the Women's Homicide Unit.
Justicia, 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 justicia.
Her job has made hers the best-known face in town. But with over 200 murders unsolved, she's widely criticized.
Of the 200 women killed here, not all were raped and strangled. There were different kinds of murder. Okay, they were all women, but some were killed in crimes of passion, others in drug dealings, others for revenge, and others in robberies and assaults.
Un reto público a la señora Suli Ponce, que nos diga verdaderamente qué sabe de labores de investigación, de técnicas de investigación. Porque si nada más está en ese puesto por haber pegado banderitas y engomados en los carros en las campañas políticas y como premio le regalaron un puesto de ese tamaño, bueno, pues que también tenga la suficiente honestidad de retirarse del cargo y decir, señores, no puedo.
¿Con qué ética acepto yo un puesto de esa magnitud si no tengo ni los mínimos de conocimientos en cuanto a investigación?
Así es.
Pues la gente quiere que seas tú, Sonia. Y ha votado, ha venido la gente a votar aquí por teléfono y quieres que seas tú.
So, 3 of the victims lived aquí in this area.
Homicide officers asked Dr. Scrapek to look at a bizarre set of murders on the outskirts of town to see if she can see any possible links.
In this area.
Yes, she visited periodically
See.
your friend.
So they would have all probably used the same bus route.
Yeah.
See? The first, he's not sure. He's not confident. So he makes sure she's dead. He takes a rock. He does something first. Sexual violation, some neck violation, strangulation, push. But he's not sure she's dead because probably it's his first killing.
Okay.
So he makes sure she's dead. The second one
think-
now, he has more
I think
confidence. In only 2 weeks, he progressed this far. That's really troubling. That's really quite frightening, actually.
The body of a young girl called Amparo was the first to be found. On the mountain ridge on the edge of the city, there are signs that the killers have been back. Two meters from where Amparo's body was found, a mysterious stone triangle has been constructed. They suspect the 15-year-old may have fallen prey to a satanic sect. Officers think the killers burnt this bush to make light.
Porque si tú prendes luz aquí, el hombre de aquel lado ya no se ve.
I want to go up there first. Behind.
The guys who did it, they took it.
Se llevaron con lo que la amarraron. Se llevaron.
She's supposed to be tied,
Yes,
but
but-
they took it.
Oh, gracias.
Took it
Se
with them.
llevaron la
¿Qué?
ropa. Ella
Clothes.
estaba completamente desnuda.
She was completely
Okay.
naked.
No footprints aquí
Nada de
in the
huella,
mud.
de zapatos ni nada.
Casi.
It's almost like they found it.
Como la encontramos.
Just 300 meters away, children have found another corpse. She'd already been lying here for several months, but because the police didn't conduct a proper search, they hadn't found her.
Because of this brush.
Sí, o sea,
I know it doesn't
la cabeza
seem
estaba
much,
para allá.
but
Sí.
he's not
De este lado,
likely
así.
to have brought her in this way.
Hasta la piedra.
If she was left face down.
La
O
piedra
sea, le cayó entre la cabeza y el hombro.
se la dieron. No, lo que pasa es que le pega y se rueda
hacia el hombro.
She was dead when he brought her here, I think. Yeah. So he may have strangled her during sex
It's possible.
and then finished the job with the rock. See? With such limited resources, I would love to have seen even 100 of those same 200 plus officers that make these raids on bars going through the fields looking for evidence when we find another murdered child or another murdered woman.
Once a year, the people of Juarez celebrate the Day of the Dead. For the families of the murdered women, it's particularly poignant. The bereaved spend the day at the tomb of their loved ones, with their favorite food and songs.
These women have acknowledged their capacity to make their own way in this life, believing in their own potential. But these women are certainly the impetus of change.
Lo que pasó en este mundo, no más el recuerdo queda. Ya muerto voy a llevarme, no más un puño de tierra.
We're standing in the neighborhood, the colonia, that I believe could very well be where the perpetrator lives, or perhaps works, or possibly drives a bus into. But this is where, I mean, we don't have to look very far and we can see where he commits his killings. And his victims live here, all in, or at least several of them so far, apparently in one area in this neighborhood.
A dirt track leads to the tiny room where Amparo had lived.
Ah, so see, very small. See.
Little is known about Amparo, except that 2 months before, the girl had arrived impoverished from the state of Veracruz at the other end of the country.
Gosh, what a solitary life for such a young girl. Be so isolated from her family, from Veracruz. See? About 2 meses?
2 meses.
No family? No friends? Not really? Just alone. Go to work? A family, friends, a familia down the street, friends, watch television, see, with the family, but that's all. I can't imagine how she would have been feeling, recognizing what the realities were once she got here. I wonder if she, at some point, would have returned to her family in Veracruz if she had been able to save enough money for a one-way ticket back. I mean, we'll never know.
The one common link among most of the women killed is that, like Amparo, they were migrant factory workers, young women who'd come from the poorer parts of Mexico for the chance to earn $4 a day. The mechanics of free trade are such that the profits from the factories flow freely across borders, but not the workers. They live in the new shanty towns that have sprung up on the outskirts of Juarez. Here, women run the highest risk of abduction and murder. The streets are unlit, and the factories work 24-hour shifts. At night, the women journey home in fear. Soledad left her parents' farmhouse in Durango, a poor region 1,000 kilometers to the south, when she was just 14. The death of so many young women is a constant source of fear.
Tengo bastante miedo.
I'm frightened by all the bad things that happen in Juarez. You have to be constantly on your guard against being robbed, beaten, or dragged into cars by strangers. The best protection is to make sure you have someone with you when you leave the house.
A stranger recently tried to drag Soledad into his car late one night. By chance, a friend happened to be passing by.
My friend yelled out my name, Soledad. The driver thought he was coming to help me, and he sped off.
Soledad shares a room with a fellow factory worker called Maribel. Women's bodies have been found near their home. Maribel is terrified of walking home alone through the unlit streets at the end of her shift.
I have to walk 5 blocks. It frightens me, but I try to give myself courage. I have to do it because I don't want to lose that job.
What Soledad and Maribel, coming from poor backward communities, gain in return for their wages is freedom.
Now I'm used to earning my own money, buying what I want, going out dancing and having fun. Back home it's not like that. Where would I earn the money? Because I'm used to buying my own clothes and shoes. How would I ever manage that back home?
This newfound freedom is transforming social attitudes. Some feel it explains much of the violence against women in Juarez. Casa Amiga is a women's support organization that helps victims of abuse. Their experience supports the growing belief that much of the violence against women springs from social changes, brought about by them becoming the main breadwinners. Their database includes domestic violence against women, something the police statistics do not account for.
¿Qué pasa a los 13 años? Mi padre nos viola a mis hermanas y a mí. Y mi madre lo demanda. Y mi padre se desaparece. Se va y lo deja con muchos problemas.
A social worker visits those who can't make it to the center for help. Lucia left her husband after he repeatedly beat her and her 3 infants. One night last year, she was attacked and raped by 4 men after finishing her shift at the factory. She found herself pregnant and has since given birth.
Que me separé de mi esposo, porque me pegaba mucho. Ella vivía con él, pero me pegaba mucho y por eso me vine para acá con mis hijos. Y aquí llegué y estaba yo rentando en un cuarto, pero tengo 2 años apenas de estar aquí. El primer año estuve bien, trabajaba yo en 2 partes, pero un día de que se me fue la ruta y llegué muy tarde al trabajo. Cuando yo salía muy tarde del otro trabajo donde estaba, que fue allá por Soriana Sanders, no sé por dónde, no conozco aquí, no conozco casi nada. Y por allá, por allí trabajaba. Y por ahí me agarraron por ahí. No supe cuánto ni cómo. Y de ahí salí embarazada.
La mujer ha adquirido responsabilidad e
Women have
independencia,
got independence for
pero el
themselves,
hombre no ha asimilado
but men
ese
haven't
cambio.
caught up yet.
Sigue queriendo seguir el que manda,
Men
el
still
que
want
da
to be in command,
permiso,
spend their
el
wives'
que se
money and
gasta
have
el
the right to
dinero de la
beat them and the
mujer,
children,
tiene
because
el
machismo
derecho
here has not been
de golpear a
eradicated.
los hijos, porque el machismo no se ha erradicado.
Casa Amiga's experience provides a different vision of Juarez, of a city where the new independence gained by women through work is breeding dangerous resentment.
Para ellas su ilusión es venir y ganar.
These women come here with the dream of earning the money
Pero
to
aquí
survive.
encuentran muchas alternativas que nunca hubieran encontrado, por ejemplo, en Oaxaca, ¿no?
But here they
Aquí
find many things they knew
cobran
nothing
cierta
about.
independencia, pueden
Independence,
ir a bailar
the opportunity to
solas,
go dancing alone,
pueden
to
decir yo
choose how and
gasto
where they
esto.
spend their money.
Se desprendieron de la tutela del padre, de la tutela del marido o del hermano.
Here they free
pero no
themselves
se
from
dan
the
cuenta
control
que
of their
adquirieron otra
fathers, their
tutela, la del
husbands, their
supervisor.
brothers.
Que en un matrimonio te golpeo o golpea a la mujer.
In a marriage,
Y
they'll beat
así
their wife and do what they
también
like.
quieren hacer lo
And
mismo.
outside the
Que
marriage, they
tomo
do
una
the
mujer,
same.
le doy y le hago
They pick
esto, y
up
le
a
hago lo que
woman,
yo
do what
quiero y
they
le doy
want
a mi
with
hija.
her, and dump
Nadie me
her.
hace nada, nadie
And
me
there's
dice
nothing to
nada.
stop them.
Nadie me conoce y sigo haciendo lo mismo. Y yo pienso que son personas que se sienten inferiores a la mujer.
I think men who do that feel inferior to women because now women know how to work, they have a more important role.
Cargos muy grandes, piensan que les estamos ganando, pero
And men
no,
think of us as a threat to them, when all we're doing is to show that we're equal.
la misma capacidad de que somos iguales.
They shouldn't
y
feel
que
inferior.
Vamos a seguir adelante, que por eso no se sientan abajo.
All week long, Soledad and Maribel look forward to their Friday night on the town. The only release for young assembly line workers is in the discos and nightclubs of the red light district. Many of the men involved in the narcotics trade also come here. It's a dangerous mix, but for Maribel and Soledad, the risks go hand in hand with their choice to lead independent lives.
Estuviera casada.
It's 100% certain that if I'd stayed in my old town, I'd been married with 4 kids.
4 hijos.
In March last year, an event occurred that gave the police their strongest lead yet in their search for the women's killers. Nancy Gonzalez finished her night shift at the factory and took the bus specially provided to protect female workers at night. The bus made its way through the poor suburbs on the outskirts of town. Nancy was the last on the bus, but the driver changed direction and drove the bus into the wasteland. Nancy was raped and beaten and left for dead. But the 14-year-old survived her horrific injuries. She identified the driver as Jesus Manuel Guardado, known as El Tolteca. He later named several other bus drivers, who he claimed were raping and killing women. They were arrested and paraded before the press. They then made an extraordinary confession. According to their statement, an Egyptian already held in custody by the name of Abdel Latif Sharif paid them to kill women. Sharif had originally been accused of abduction and rape by a local prostitute and drug addict who needed cash. But within hours of his arrest, the police announced that Sharif was the serial killer of women in Juarez. He'd had a previous conviction in the USA for sexual assault. That, in the eyes of many, was enough to condemn him. But even with Sharif behind bars, the killings were to continue. Doubts about the police allegations were confirmed when the drivers recanted their confession. They showed evidence of beatings, cigarette burns, and electric shocks. 2 years before, the police had made similar allegations against another gang, known as the Rebeldes, but they too had been tortured into saying Sharif was paying them to kill, and the case was dropped. When he was interviewed in prison, Sharif challenged the authorities.
They always said that I was a genius. I was very intelligent.
Las autoridades siempre han dicho que yo soy un genio.
Okay, well, thank you.
Bueno, les agradezco mucho.
Okay. How come a genius would make the same mistake twice? If I did the rebeldes, why would I do same thing the same way? Paying people, killing women outside, which is very stupid. I'm sorry.
The murder charges against Sharif were so flimsy, they were all thrown out of court. Sharif was then cleared of the rape charge for which he'd been arrested in the first place. This came as an embarrassment for the authorities. Before there was time to release him, the police hastily pressed new charges against Sharif. This time they accused him of the murder of a teenage factory worker named Elizabeth Castro. And once again, the key evidence was seriously flawed.
That body is not Elizabeth Castro. The body is 1 meter and 63 centimeters, and Elizabeth Castro is 1 meter and 74 centimeters. That's a quite difference there. Also, the body that was found has a very thin lips, and the Elizabeth Castro was very full lips.
The police had also miscalculated the time of death. Elizabeth Castro had been missing for only 4 days. Forensic evidence showed that the body presented by the police had been dead for much longer.
The body was in completely and absolutely decomposed. But, terrible that you can tell that that body has to be like 3 weeks or a month, that not 4 days and 17 hours.
Despite the seriously flawed evidence, Sharif was sentenced to 30 years for Elizabeth Castro's murder. He appealed and won, but remains in jail awaiting a retrial. He's been taken to a maximum security prison in the state capital of Chihuahua and placed in solitary confinement. Despite repeated requests, we were denied access to an interview with him.
Cada vez que Sharif ha sido entrevistado,
whenever Sharif talks to the press, he challenges the authorities. Sharif is a very intelligent man. He always points out very clearly the irregularities in his case.
Ha hablado claramente de las irregularidades y los
And
errores
obviously the government doesn't want the embarrassment, especially with foreign media.
No le interesa que los vuelva a poner en evidencia y mucho menos en un medio de comunicación.
If the Sharif case were to collapse, then all the other cases would collapse with it, because they're all linked.
Porque los han ligado.
It would be a big scandal.
Sería un escándalo muy fuerte.
The police insistence that the serial killer of Juarez is already behind bars has eroded what little confidence people had left in them. On the streets, crosses appear on telegraph poles as a reminder of those killed and as a challenge to the authorities to act. Women are beginning to take matters into their own hands. During one of the many religious street festivals, the mother of a murdered woman has spotted a member of one of the gangs accused of murder. She wants him arrested.
¿Qué hay? Pues nunca ha habido, pues se salió por menor de edad. Lo único que no lo queremos, pues lo vamos a matar, ¿eh?
Ahorita vamos a ver una queja, ahorita hay una queja para podernos llevar nosotros. Ahorita no hay una queja en contra de él. No les hizo nada ahorita, algo.
¿Quiere que haga más?
Nosotros nos hablaron, está aquí en el club, pero no.
Another teenage factory worker has gone missing. 16-year-old Veronica Martinez. Her mother and fellow workers threaten to take the law into their own hands if the women's homicide chief, Sully Ponce, does not do more to help. But Ponce is conducting a search accompanied by members of the press. The women see this as a costly stunt. They're not prepared to wait and set off on their own investigation. They suspect Veronica may have been abducted by a boyfriend. The young man is not there. They confront the boy's father.
Queremos que nos permita. Usted nos da permiso, nosotros entramos y verificamos y vamos que nos lleve con los demás familiares. Sé que estamos violando la ley, pero no nos importa porque la ley no hace nada por nosotros y nosotros vamos a tomarla.
The women aren't convinced. They search the compound anyway.
¿Cómo se llama la escuela?
Miguel Hidalgo Costilla.
O sea, si usted está amenazada o le dijeron que no dijera nada o no tenga miedo. Linda García.
García Rodríguez.
They go back to the police headquarters in time to catch Sully Ponce returning with her press entourage.
No las miramos para dónde ganaron, pero esta llegó directamente a la maquila y nos vio, se paró y se regresó.
Por eso, porque no estamos haciendo las cosas como se deben hacer. Me explico. Dentro de nuestra desesperación estamos poniendo la alerta a quien estamos buscando. Qué bueno, además, qué bueno que como mujeres, nos preocupemos por otra mujer o por otra niña. Qué bueno, ojalá y que todos tuviéramos esta unión de decir, ok, es esta niña y nos vamos a juntar todas, nos vamos a juntar todos y vamos a hacer una búsqueda. Qué bueno, eso es muy bonito y además es un apoyo para las señoras. Para empezar, somos mujeres y sabemos los riesgos por los que corremos y sabemos las desventajas que tenemos como mujeres. Eso lo sabemos perfectamente. Entonces, yo creo que es tiempo de empezarnos a ver, pero como amigas, no como enemigas.
María Rosario, ¿quiere sentarse, por favor?
Dr. Scrapek asks to see Veronica's mother. She's still convinced that her daughter's boyfriend is involved in her disappearance.
¿Usted tiene sospechas para con el novio?
Sí.
She has some concerns about the boyfriend. ¿Él trabaja?
Sí, todavía está trabajando ahí. Sí.
¿Trabaja en la misma maquila?
Sí, es que Verónica trabajaba así en la máquina de prensa y este hombre pues siempre le tocaba sentarse atrás de ella. Entonces pues siempre estaban platicando los dos.
Ok.
Entonces como el lunes fue ahí a mi lugar, me dijo, oiga, dijo, deja a Verónica salir conmigo. Que se le daba permiso, ¿verdad? Para andar con él. Sí. Entonces le dije, pues yo creo que no es el momento porque pues, yo estoy trabajando, le dije. Al día siguiente apareció con chupetones en el cuello y el día anterior, que antes de que se apareciera mi niña, no estaba así.
Sí. Hickeys.
Okay. That's the word.
The detectives working on the case reveal that there are other suspects.
It seems that there is some very good reason to believe that there was a lot of trouble between Veronica and her father.
Yes. His father's over jealous. He took her out of school and put her in the maquila, so she can stop working. But he was over jealous. He didn't want her to have a boyfriend or anything like that.
What have you learned about the case? Did he actually threaten to kill her?
Yes. One time he even told her, I wish a lot of guys, will kill you, and I think it was rape you also, that he told Veronica.
It's been 3 weeks since the college girl Lupita went missing. Sule Ponce makes a radio appeal to the public to come forward with information. I can't believe that in an entire neighborhood at 2:30 in the afternoon, nobody, absolutely nobody, saw or heard anything. Forgive me, but the truth is that we must all be cowards, that we don't have the guts, character, and conscience to come forward. It's too easy to say, I don't want to get involved. This is a struggle. As a woman, I want to give something to the community, and especially to other women. The only answer to the public appeal is a hoax caller demanding money from Lupita's parents.
No les importa que uno.
They don't care about our pain, that we're trying to find my daughter.
Ellos nada más juegan con.
They just play with you.
Esto. Que si aquí la justicia no les hace nada.
And if the law does nothing, there is a God who sees all this, and hopefully she will come back.
Que ojalá ella llegue.
Que me digan, pues, ¿dónde está? ¿Dónde la han visto?
We just want to know where our daughter is, if anyone has seen her. A hope.
Se imagina uno mil cosas.
Every time the telephone rings, I imagine 1,000 things and hope many things.
Pero,
but nothing.
No. Desgraciadamente, ni
we don't have a single clue about how to find our daughter.
Amiga.
Members of the public organize their own search for clues to the fate of Lupita. Most of those who show up also have daughters and fear for their safety. They're furious at the incompetence of the authorities.
All that's left is for us to take the law into our own hands, nothing less. If we catch the killer, we should kill him ourselves and dump him with the garbage.
The search reveals nothing. Sharif has been in prison for over 5 years, but there is no proven connection between him and any of the killings. Yet the police still insist he's guilty. Sharif raped the women, and so did the gang members. And then they strangled them so as to destroy the evidence, so we'd never be able to identify them.
Will he ever be released?
No creo.
Why not?
I don't think Sharif will ever be released, because the government controls the judges and the police.
Tienen todo el control. Pueden controlar
I really
jueces,
don't think they'll ever
pueden
give up on
controlar
Sharif.
Ministerio Público. No, no lo creo. Realmente no lo creo. Hay tantas
There is
evidencias
such strong
tan
evidence that the
contundentes
investigation is flawed
de que
and that they
está mal
invented many
la
things.
investigación,
If
de
the case
que
has not
se
collapsed
inventaron
yet, it
muchas
means he has no
cosas,
chance.
que si eso no ha tumbado el caso, no, a mí me parece muy difícil.
Son esposos cariñosos, son amantes.
It's husbands, lovers, and relatives who are doing the killing. And they are killing innocent women because even if we wear miniskirts, even if we walk alone at night, we are not asking to be raped or killed.
Mátenme, violen.
What's happening in this city has been a process of change. A change in the behavior of women. What they've experienced here is, to some degree, a backlash. I reasonably expect that there will be many more problems before things get better here.
To date, there have been no new breakthroughs on the cases that Dr. Scrapek has assisted on. There's still no word on the fate of Veronica and Lupita. Meanwhile, the killings continue, and new names appear on the list of missing women.
Servicios para ofrecerle a ustedes otras formas adicionales para comprar y ahorrar con First.com.